Palabananda. So here we see that fasting appears in nearly every major religious tradition as a disciplined method for reshaping perception and conduct. Hinduism, Christianity, Islam, Judaism, and Buddhism all preserve structured forms of abstention from food or drink, often integrated with prayer, remembrance, or repentance. Despite theological differences, these traditions converge on a single insight. Appetite is not merely biological, it is moral and attentional. To regulate it is to regulate the self. In Hindu traditions, Upavasa or fasting has ancient roots. It is practiced in multiple forms, from periodic observances such as Ekadashi, which occurs twice each month, to festival fasts dedicated to deities like Shiva, Vishnu, and the goddesses. Classical yogic and aesthetic literature associates fasting with tapas, the disciplined heat that purifies intention and strengthens resolve. Dharmashastra texts frame fasting as prayashchita or expiation for moral lapses, while devotional traditions interpret it as an offering of restraint to the divine. Importantly, scriptures repeatedly stress proportionality. Fasting should cultivate clarity rather than bodily harm. The Bhagavad Gita situates control of appetite within a wider ethic of balance, warning that both excess and extreme denial destabilize inner life. Thus, fasting functions less as punishment and more as a means of aligning bodily rhythms with spiritual aims. Christian fasting developed from Jewish precedent and early aesthetic practice. So, the 40 days of Lent recall the gospel narratives of Jesus fasting in the wilderness, themselves echoing the 40-day fast of Moses and Elijah in the Hebrew Bible. By the 4th century, fasting had become central to monastic discipline, particularly among the desert fathers of Egypt and Syria. Their writings describe hunger as a diagnostic tool. It exposes impatience, anger, and vanity, revealing the inner sources of moral failure. Medieval Christian theology integrated fasting with prayer and almsgiving, ensuring that bodily restraint served charity and humility rather than pride. Within this framework, fasting is a pedagogical discipline training desire to submit to the higher purpose. In Islam, fasting or Sawam during the month of Ramadan is one of the 5 pillars of religious practice. From dawn to dusk, adult Muslims abstain from food, drink, and any kind of intimate relations while intensifying prayer, recitation of the Quran, and charitable giving. The Quran defines purpose explicitly that you may develop taqwa, a term denoting moral vigilance and God consciousness. Ramadan thus synchronizes an entire community around restraint, converting hunger into a collective ethical exercise. Judaism associates fasting most prominently with Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, when observant Jews abstain from food and drink for approximately 25 hours. The fast accompanies confession, reconciliation, and ritual purification, emphasizing that bodily restraint supports moral repair. Other fast days such as Tisha B'Av, that is, commemorate historical catastrophes, binding hunger to communal memory. Rabbinic literature consistently presents fasting as an aid to teshuvah, return or repentance, rather than as self-inflicted suffering. Buddhism inherited fasting pra- Buddhism inherited fasting practices from Indian aesthetic culture but reinterpreted them through the Buddha teaching of the middle way. After rejecting extreme self mortification, the Buddha established a monastic discipline in which monks and nuns eat before noon, a mild daily fast designed to cultivate mindfulness. In later traditions, observance days such as Uposatha involve intensified ethical reflection and restraint, including fasting in some communities. Here, hunger becomes a reminder of impermanence and a tool for loosening attachment. Across traditions, fasting functions as spiritual technology, a repeated method designed for predictable changes in attention and behavior. It operates through three mechanisms. First, it interrupts habitual consumption by suspending the routine cycle of hunger and satisfaction. Fasting reveals how identity is entwined with appetite. Second, it sharpens awareness. Hunger concentrates attention on the present, heightening the impact of prayer, recitation, or reflection. Third, it moralizes desire. So, eating becomes a conscious act rather than an automatic reflex. Modern physiology sheds partial light on these effects. Short term fasting shifts metabolism from glucose to fat derived ketones, often associated with heightened alertness. Research on autophagy, the cellular recycling process elucidated by Nobel laureate Yoshinori Ohsumi in 2016, shows that nutrient deprivation activates internal repair mechanisms. While religious fasting was never designed as medical therapy, these findings clarify why abstention has long been linked with renewal and clarity. Fasting is rarely solitary. Ramadan is communal. Yom Kippur unfolds in the synagogue, and Lent shapes ecclesial calendars. Ekadashi orders household life. Buddhist observance days renew collective woes. So, this social dimension prevents fasting from collapsing into private self improvement. Food withheld from oneself is frequently redirected towards a poor binding aestheticism to justice. Classical sources also guard against misuse. The Hebrew prophets condemn fasting divorced from concern for the oppressed. Jesus warns against public displays of deprivation. Hindu and Buddhist texts caution that bodily austerity without ethical conduct produces only pride. These critics show that fasting is a means, not an end. Seen comparatively, fasting is neither dietary trend nor relic of pre-modern piety. It is a cross-cultural method for disciplining attention, restraining impulse, and embedding ethics in the body.